I'm at the Rickson Gracie seminar, and you know, I go in with the mindset of I'm probably going to be standing in front of maybe the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioner of all time, and he's going to be telling me something about jiu-jitsu that he thinks is profound that I need to know. And so that's the mindset I have going in. And so I'm looking intently at everything that he does, trying to, because I want to grab that thing, you know, what's that thing that makes Rickson Rickson? For me, paying particular attention to everything that he was doing, and as he's showing something, I'm trying to categorize it and remember it and file it away. The way he taught was important because he didn't give a lot of details. He didn't talk about like the angle of the foot or drop your shoulder here or make sure your elbow doesn't flare out. He just said you have to connect, and then he showed us a technique. Connection is really important, and then he showed us some stuff. You know, he was scratching at it.
I was Kane's partner through the entire Rickson seminar. That sort of resonance with what Rickson was showing, I was able to kind of be there firsthand to experience that.
The seminar was kind of like a slow burn for me because I didn't leave the seminar with like, I got that Rickson thing, and I still don't think I got the Rickson thing, but because when I left the seminar, I was still focused on the stuff that he taught. Here's this really cool mount bottom escape that I'd never seen before, or these details that were really cool, and I focused on those.
There's a humility. I've heard him call himself the worst black belt in the organization, and I find it horribly offensive. And that it's also completely false. His ability to evaluate himself and maybe do so a little critically is rough, but I think it also makes him a great coach in the sense that he's willing to learn every time.
Brian Walsh, I've been here for 13 years, coach stand-up, corner guys in MMA. To me, the key thing about Kane is when he is coaching a class, and these days they're big classes, I observed personally that, wow, that was pretty much customized to me. You know, that there's not one thing, there's not two things, there'll be 3 or 4 things that are like, yeah, that's a hole in my game, yeah, that's a strength in my game, or, you know, whatever, but the point is it's kind of customized to me. And as a fellow coach, observing everybody else in the class, yeah. I think everybody else in the class has that same impression.
And bring them straight. Now make your knees go wide. Yeah, now throw one over. Boom, you're there. Yeah. Nice. Okay, good break. That's all we have time for tonight. Circle up. You know, I'd been working for years under this one lens of looking at jiu-jitsu, which was posture, pressure, possibilities. And at the base level, you have posture. You know, posture allows you to create pressure, which allows you to create possibilities, and possibilities are sweeps, escapes, submissions.
We have the posture and the pressure. Now we can start to look at the possibilities if we're doing the 3P model. And here's where it starts to look like technique, and you can see some of the different possibilities that are available to you. So let's start with the first one. I build my good posture here, right? Legs on my chest here. Let's look at some other possibilities here. I'm going to create my space and come in and bring my knees in right here. And I get my knees up.
And Rickson comes in and he doesn't talk about that stuff. In fact, when he's showing stuff, he hardly even shows a lot of details about posture. He just talks about how should the connection feel. The connection should feel this way. It was really interesting the way he taught stuff. Like, he didn't teach a lot of details, and he kept talking about connection and what's going on there. Why did he show these particular techniques? And eventually my mind started to really focus on that connection part, and to try to go back and remember how he talked about the way you connect with your partner in all these positions. And it took me, I don't know, a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks before finally I was able to get, oh, how you connect and attach to the other person. That is the thing.
Just getting fundamental technique distilled down into not a technique anymore, but just a posture, just a position, you know, and what that does for a student, specifically a student that doesn't have a fighting background or a martial arts background, that really makes it accessible.
Put your foot on her hip and then push yourself towards me a little bit. Yeah, back up. Yeah, and that's gonna make your legs longer. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. So sometimes if your hips are too far underneath them, it makes your legs short. And then when you scoot out like that, your legs get longer. So good question.
Understanding why things work and presenting them to you in that manner, that is so invaluable and it makes people learn so much faster. I mean, from the time when I started and the time now, and you see a white belt progress from a brand new white belt to a blue belt, like the time is almost cut in half from when I started.
Connection is we're attached in a way that we form one unit, and that's the bases are connected.
Right.
And if I'm winning that battle, I get to decide how that movement happened. And that's a really interesting lens because it's not a way I've thought of jiu-jitsu before. I've always thought of us as two sort of independent bodies in this battle, but the way Rickson described it, and when you look at everything he did, he's marrying his center or base with the other person's, and then he controls the movement, which I'm not sure how you can get any more fundamental than that in jiu-jitsu.
No.
If you're not getting the choke, then it is positional. So that somehow your structure's off. There's a couple things that cause the structure to get off in a triangle choke. One, and it's usually about this shoulder. One is I'm behind the shoulder, and so I'm not driving the shoulder into his neck at all. Feel I'm not putting any pressure on his shoulder? If I come here, now I'm on that shoulder and I'm driving it in. And so my hips lift the shoulder into the neck. A conundrum and comforting is Rickson was having a lot of trouble describing it as well, because I don't think everybody in the room got it when he talked about connection. In fact, I think probably most people didn't. And so I think it's a really tough concept, but I think in some way he was issuing a challenge, like, you guys are the next generation. Here's what it looks like and here's what it feels like. You guys are gonna figure it out and you're gonna find a way. I'm giving it to you as best that I can, and then you guys are gonna figure out how to do it.
Kane taught me how to frame. He did?
I think we will. I feel like I'm making some progress already, and it's only been a few weeks. And I think all of the work that we've done at SBG over the last 15, 20 years, and sort of really honing in on fundamentals and sticking to, you know, what's fundamental about jiu-jitsu in terms of posture and position and all of that sets us up, I think, as being in the right spot to be able to figure out how to take this connection idea and bring it into jiu-jitsu in a way that we can get it to everybody. I think we're going to do it. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do it yet, but
okay.
I think we're going to get there.
Would you do cross side top on me? Yeah, and then go ahead and get a pretty decent shoulder justice bite. So you're really driving in with your chin. So right now, John is owning the connection, and not just because he's on top, because our bodies are joined and he's controlling how we're joined and how we move. And so I'm going to switch and I'm going to own the connection on John here. And what I want you to do, John, is tell me when you feel the connection has switched over so that you're no longer owning it.
Now.
Yeah. And how does that feel different?
I'm no longer using my force on you. You're using your connection and you're driving into me.
Yeah, so
through my shoulder.
So I'm capturing your shoulder, I'm connecting it to your to my chest, and I'm controlling the space rather than you're controlling the space. So when you have shoulder justice and you're applying there, you're controlling the space. I'm trying to make space, but I can't make it. And so I'm going to flip the script, and I'm going to own the space so that I'm controlling it. There. And then now when you try to make space, you can't make any space. And so there's one example of flipping the script and then owning the connection even from bottom. You got one?
We can stay there. So, in the shoulder of justice, we emphasize this connection, but I want to emphasize that connection. So, as my opponent starts to defend, I can still turn him away, but I don't necessarily have to have the deep bite constantly. All I have to do is be able to connect the Iron Man symbol to Iron Man symbol.
Yeah, I feel it.
And the moment you start to change your frames, I never change that area of connection, but I change the orientation of my body and I defeat the frames of my opponent.
Here's another. I'm gonna get, I'm gonna sit out here. So pretty common jiu-jitsu position. I'm gonna do it without connection and then with connection. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it on camera. So here's the position with no connection. And there's the position with connection. You feel the difference, John?
Oh yeah.
So immediately, where our bodies touch right here, I'm working on settling in and really closing in all that space there. And my elbow comes in, my palm pulls up, my shoulder comes forward, and then my floating ribs sink in and attach to John's. And when I have that connection, you can see him wince. And so sometimes the difference in connection, it's almost invisible, but it makes a gigantic difference in that position. And so there's connection there. And you know, we talk about how to teach it. John can feel it right away, can't you?
Yep.
And I can feel it right away when I get it. And so the two participants know it exactly when they see it. You got another one?
We can stay there.
Okay, actually, great. Love it.
So, top player has the connection. I've got the connection. And it's all from making a frame. My opponent's connected on my hip.
Yeah.
This is a very slight movement. All it is the final off balancing, and I'm going to push for it.
It's interesting to me because I can feel the moment when this connection becomes, it's owned by me, and then the moment it becomes owned by you, right? Yeah, now it's owned by you. And so it's that thing where our bodies are joined as one. I'm owning the connection, and you make some shifts with your body, insert a frame, and all of a sudden you're owning that space. That's a really cool one. So,
Nice.
And again, I can feel it there, and so can you when it shifts. And so sometimes it may just be a matter of paying attention and noticing when that shift in ownership of the connection happens, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, this is something you could do in a class.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it happens, it doesn't necessarily have to happen from top because you can feel where you can own the connection from bottom. So you talked about the mount bottom one. You want to do that one? Yeah. I mean, honestly, as soon as you inserted your elbow frames in there, I felt like you're already owning the hip connection there, and it's no longer mine. I can feel the moment that it happens in that position. So it might just be a matter of me paying attention. Like I'm sort of owning the connection right now. No, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not owning it anymore, and so. I don't know, to me that's the interesting thing about jiu-jitsu, and all of those things end up being postures, so it goes back to our idea of posture, pressure, possibilities, but it's paying attention to where when you're changing your posture from one to another, that ownership of the connection swaps over, and so maybe that's the thing that we need to be able to articulate, and when we do that, then students know,
Yes.
is that the trigger for when pressure needs to happen to open up possibilities, and so I think we're getting there.
Kane is known for being really good north-south. That's like his position, and if he gets you in north-south, you might as well just tap half the time. What got him into doing it was a way to get far away from your opponent's guard. And as a new white belt, I had a really hard, if I did get past someone's guard, I had a really hard time holding them in cross sides I just didn't have the technique or the knowledge at that point to keep someone's guard away from me. So, and also as a smaller guy, I was like, well, if I can get as far away from their legs as possible, it's going to make my day easier.
One of the things that's really interesting to me about the connection idea is it seems to transcend age and athleticism and body type, and it feels like it's something that anybody could do. And so in that, it becomes a real fundamental. And you know, I'm blessed in my jiu-jitsu in that I have a couple of things going for me, and you're on that path as well. One, I'm turning 50 this year, and so it means there's some athleticism that's gone. And so when I think about jiu-jitsu, I have to think fundamentals. And then two, when I walk into my class, you know, I'll have 14 to 55 on the mat and all different body types and ages. And so when I'm building stuff, it has to work for everybody. And so you know, exploring this idea of connection as being the fundamental building block of jiu-jitsu and something that will create posture. If we can, as coaches, if we can find the way to give people that idea of connection, then posture's already there, because if you have connection, well,
it's going to imply the appropriate posture.
Right.
I mean, I absolutely see, and it's very much, we reference John Frankel, but it's very much that, oh, you've given me this, well, here's this. I mean, here's this game that now I'm going to start playing with you.
Yeah.
And it's all because, you know, most of the time, at least when I see people roll with John, they initiate, but he masters the connection and the posture almost immediately.
And you know, I found that trying it in my classes, I was able to, by demonstrating it for students and by describing the tactile feel of what the connection feels like when I get it, what it feels like for me as the person winning the connection, what it should feel like on the bottom for the person who's not winning the connection. I was able to impart it in a way that I could get groups of students to do it. And you could see it when they got it, because you could see the eyes go, holy shit, because it was like this simple thing. And sometimes it's just a matter of a slight twist or contracting this muscle and relaxing this muscle. But if you're able to articulate how connection feels, how it should feel in the right way, and then students start to do it, then it clicks automatically. And I think if we do that in enough circumstances and we just keep going there over and over again, they'll learn how to find it independently. When you focus on that quality of the connection, then all the other parts make sense. So in order to have that really good connection where you and the other person are united as one entity and you are in control of how that entity moves. So instead of me as a coach having to describe all the parts of posture to you and you to have to categorize it and remember, what did Coach Kane say? Did he say shoulders forward or shoulders back? Did he say elbows in, elbows? I don't remember exactly what he said. You just attend to, what does that connection feel like? Do I have the right connection? Am I owning the connection? And when you do, take a look at what your posture is doing. And it's probably already pretty darn good. And so using that as a lens to determine whether or not your posture is okay and if you're in a good spot where you can apply some pressure.
So I think, you know, Vic's mentioned a hypothesis. So here's a hypothesis.
Yeah.
So it's maybe something to test. If I've made connection in posture, my opponent's only response should be an athletic response. That's it.
Oh,
the only way out at that point to change this position is to respond with athleticism.
Now, how would you describe an athletic response?
Muscle engagement. That's beyond me just keeping my body in alignment.
Like
I have
some sort of explosiveness or
strength or attribute based.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I thank you for saying attribute, because it could be somebody who has a Gumby. I could be passing with perfect connection, and somebody who's got a Gumby guard automatically employs the maximum amount of their flexibility.
Huh. Interesting. That's a good way to look at it.
Double underpass, and so it's a pass I really like, and been doing it for a long time, and then started discovering how connection works from that one. What I discovered is that there's 2 points of connection in the double underpass that make it work really well, and if you have both of these points of connection, then the pass is a gimme. And so here's how it works. Connection number 1. So my lower body connects to the hips, and so there's maybe my primary connection. And so the lower body takes care of the lower body, and I need that connection, and I need to maintain it. Connection number 2, my upper body takes care of the legs here like that. And so now I've got a double connection here, and maintaining both of these points of connection is going to allow me to have a really strong double underpass. And then the only thing I need in this pass to turn it from where I am now into a guaranteed pass is a little bit of posture shift. And the posture shift I need is for the back of John's knee to be on my shoulder. And then as soon as I have that, if I have my lower body connection, my upper body connection there, pass is going to be fairly guaranteed. If I negate some of that connection, so I have the upper body without the lower body, then his ability to make space and throw things in is going to be almost limitless. If I have the lower body without the upper body, sometimes people will weave feet in and other stuff happens to sort of destroy that pass. And so even if I'm not successful in getting that posture part there, owning this connection right here is going to put me in a spot where I'm in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And so what I find is that, again, if I have the posture, and then you can feel the pressure there, that other possibilities may open up if I can't get that last part. So there's an example of taking something that I've done for years and years, and then applying that connection piece over the top to make it a more usable thing. And so now I'm thinking of the double unders as being sort of a connection position point rather than a particular route or pathway.
Yeah, and I can feel that connection with your lower body and your upper body. Neither of those is primary. They're both simultaneously doing this work. And I felt, you called it a postural reorientation, but I felt as you could have picked either side to put that leg up on your shoulder, or to just, break this plane of my leg even more as a pressure. Yeah. And I was all but lost at that point. It would have taken, a huge athletic movement for me to get you off of me.
Right. And so that brings up another point you talked about before, the idea that if you have good connection with really good posture and the ability to create pressure from that spot, then the only response from the other person that's going to work is going to be an athletic response, which by definition is not really a jiu-jitsu response.
Correct. And so I think it's this notion of efficient grappling versus effective grappling.
Right.
So you can have monster athletes who have very effective grappling. Grappling, it probably beats me a ton of the time. But I can also tell when they're being inefficient, i.e. if you could put me in a time machine and give me plenty of TRT, I could be competing against these guys. And then I feel like, oh, we'd be on an equal playing field and I'd be more efficient. So you can still be doing everything right, and somebody's effective grappling with their athleticism beats you, but you should be able to recognize when that happens. And it happens when you are being efficient by having good posture, a good connection, and you're applying efficient pressures. And the only way out is, oh, I'm going to bench press you off of me, and I'm stronger than you. All right, we'll do this 20 times then. And maybe by the 20th time, you don't have it in you anymore.
Yeah, I love that concept because it's a way for students to sort of dissect what happens when things don't go the way they had planned. And so you can dissect it as
I need to fix some parts of my jiu-jitsu game, or I think I was doing everything I was supposed to do. The other person just, he's got 50 pounds and a 500-pound bench press, and what am I going to do for that? And so I think that's great. And so the idea of Coach John Kavanaugh says win or lose, or excuse me, win or learn. And so when things don't go your way, take it as a learning opportunity. So that paradigm would help students with that part.
Concept needs a little bit more theoretical fleshing out, because I think, the organization is large, and we've got people who are active competitors at very high levels, and people who are, regional competitors, and people who don't compete at all, or people who are older. And so I can see where for a subgroup of the members, the focus has to be effective grappling. And if the shortest route to effective grappling is, I'm going to do an extra 50 power cleans this week, then, they're 28, they just got signed into the UFC or something. Don't derail that, because they got this small window to do that. Long term, I absolutely hope they adopt all right, my response should not be my athleticism, it should be a technical response, and then I just sprinkle on my athleticism here and there, and I become a very effective and efficient grappler. Taking the possibilities portion and saying, this is something that just happens, a real focus in the coaching and the theory of grappling and jiu-jitsu is going to be posture, connection, and pressures.
It's building posture from the connection. Someone on Facebook messaged me and saying, you remember when Rickson was there, he talked about connection before you even touch the other person, because he was describing Rickson was describing a posture where you have base in all four directions, and no matter how the other person approaches and connects to you, while you're in that base, you're going to be okay. And so Rickson was already anticipating owning the connection before it happened. So he was setting up his posture so that pre-connection status, his posture was so good that when the other person established an attachment, that the connection was already there. And so I thought that was really interesting. And so I think the definition still holds, but the thinking sometimes has to be that you're setting up for the connection before attachment, which I thought I was like, the light bulbs were going off, and I'm thinking, wow, that's great. And so that's another place where posture interacts with connection, and that Rickson was already fixing his posture so that when the attachment happened, the connection was his.
He started teaching a concept where he called them landing pads, where I could find places, even against someone who's bigger and stronger than me, that I could find my pressure, find my posture, and make the adjustments I needed to continue the technique and not have them just powering out of things.
I think there in jiu-jitsu there definitely is sort of natural resting, strong posture that exists before you even connect. And so if I'm thinking about guard passing, and I'm working against John's guard, we're not attached yet, and so there's no connection happening, but my posture is really pretty lousy here. And then so when attachment does happen, I'm going to be in really pretty lousy shape. And so if I take my posture and I fix it here, now that when a connection happens, my posture is way better. My back is straight, my shoulders are back here, my hips are engaged. The subtle thing of knowing which muscles to tense and which muscles to relax puts me in a spot where when the attachment happens to form the connection, my posture is in a spot where I can build our own in. And so, it works from other places as well, and guard passing is kind of a natural spot. And the same way that, John would be fixing his posture on the bottom so that, so he's doing some of the same thing. You can see he's got a really straight back, an upright chin, his shoulders are back here, and his hips are in a nice tight spot. And what you don't see is He's tensing and relaxing just the muscles that need to tense and relax to give him the maximum amount of both stability and ability to move. So that when a connection does start to happen, yeah, then he's in the spot to own it. And so I think that's that same Rickson posture that he was doing from two people standing upright, where jiu-jitsu people would naturally do it from like a guard top and bottom perspective.
Those small concepts for me were really the ones that would hit home and have had enormous influence on the way I roll.
I'm starting to understand Rickson's idea of invisible jiu-jitsu, because sometimes it's like that, and then all of a sudden you and the other guy can feel it. You can see the other guy's eyes go like that, and it's like, oh my God, and you can feel it. It's like the connection just changed.
So that's almost there, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, how different does these two things look?
They look exactly the same.
Only he and I know it. It's crazy. Kane already knows, oh, he's got to expend some energy here, but his arm's safe. Now he really has to expend some energy.
Yeah. And so, the feeling I have on the bottom is, I feel a couple things. One, I feel a tightening in my elbow and my arm extending, and I no longer have the ability to create that much bend in my elbow. Okay. And then I felt my shoulder lift and then shove into my body in a way that I no longer have the ability to move my shoulder joint. Okay. And so with that subtle shift, he's taken away any movement I have in both of these joints. And you wouldn't see it from the outside, but I feel it immediately. And it's a feeling of everything's okay to it's not okay. And I feel it all through here, it's not okay. What's really interesting is in that connection, John focused on this part of the connection, which is really interesting. Yeah. And so I can not focus on the arm part of the connection, but focus on the ribs and the hip part of the connection. And he can feel the difference here. So no connection. Right. And then connection. And so how does that feel for you on the bottom? How would you describe the feel?
It feels the same. It feels like, well, my lower back just went flat. So I have no give in it. For me to get back my give will require me to expend some effort. Gotcha. And I, right here, I'm a little bit rolled up, and then Coach Kane, nope, there's no roll in that hip anymore. So my hips are out of the fight without me fighting.
And so it's something that you can feel intuitively right away, and then when you think about it, then you can sort of describe like, oh, it's because of my hips. And and so I think as coaches, being able to work into the curriculum time or an experience where students can feel that. Right. And all right, now here's what I want you to do. I want you to own that connection, and then a person on the bottom, I want you to describe to the person on the top how that worked or what it felt like. Person on the top, I want you to describe to the person on the bottom how that worked or what that felt like. And so, at least initially, students are, in a real overt way, sort of describing or really focusing on the quality of that connection. And then, I think doing that over time, then like everything in jiu-jitsu, it starts out in a real cognitive frontal brain part of the place, and then eventually it gets replaced with your body automatically does it. You don't have to think about it anymore. And so that's maybe part of the transition we're working on. I think what we're going to discover is that connection is jiu-jitsu. As human beings, we're always searching for a connection with somebody else, and the quality of connections that we make with people are really, that's the essence of what life is for us, and I think we're going to discover in jiu-jitsu that the quality of connection I'm able to make with the other person in a real literal way. I'm not talking about some spiritual or emotional connection, but the way I apply my hips and shoulder to connect in cross-side top or something like that, and attending specifically to that connection is going to be completely transformative. I can already start to feel that by attending to that specific piece in my own personal game, that it's paying really big dividends. So I can tell what's going to happen. We're still trying to figure out how to how to get it out of here, and then, you know, present it in a way that other people are having the same experience.
I love going to camps where Coach Kane gets to teach, and you get to see the reaction from people that don't get to train with him on a regular basis. And by the end of his section, everybody's just like, their minds are blown and they're just like, oh my God, what just happened? But then when you see other people get their minds blown and how it changes their game, then you really like, it's like another level of appreciation for what he's doing. You
know, if we can really hone in on this idea of connection, then I think it would make people better at jiu-jitsu faster, but more importantly, it allows people to own their own jiu-jitsu in a way that they're not having to rely on a coach or somebody else to tell them exactly like, hey, is this a good thing that I did? Because you can feel it intuitively in your body when, and I've experimented with this enough with students, white belts, like where they know when I describe what the connection should feel like, and when I describe what it feels like when you own the connection, they feel it right away, and so does their partner. And so if I have that as a tool, even as a white belt, like I'm owning the connection right now, regardless of the position I'm in, then I know something about jiu-jitsu, and it gives me a platform that I can learn jiu-jitsu on my own.
I watch his interactions with his daughter. I see his interactions with students, and for me, on top of being one of the best coaches I've ever seen in any sport, hands down, he's also an amazing individual.
Now I'm a coach, and now I think about all the years of mat time and techniques I've ran through and taught, and I still go back to the fundamentals that Coach Kane taught me 10 years ago, you know, and that who can say that?
Rickson is able to take a group of black belts and then describe this idea of connection and show some examples and, you know, plant that seed. And I think that's what he is. He's that farmer who planted that seed of connection. And so, you know, it's up to us to make it grow, and he did his part. And I think that's kind of how I think about what Rickson did. And so I'm trying to nurture that seed and see if I can grow some sort of a jiu-jitsu plant. I don't know. I think we're going to discover that connection maybe is the ultimate fundamental. You know, when you look at the tree diagram that Matt draws, and base is the roots, there's some fundamental relationship between connection and base that we will discover. Yeah, so I'm excited about understanding how that works, and if we need to add to our tree drawing. Maybe connection is the earth that the roots burrow into. I don't know.
This is SBG, and you will be okay.